For years, analysts have warned about something called the new global axis, a possible alliance between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, four powers that together could directly challenge the United States and its allies. But now, something unexpected has happened. While bombings devastate Iran and the regime struggles to survive, their supposed allies simply haven't appeared. No army, no fleet, no intervention. So arises the question that could redefine global geopolitics. Does this axis really exist? Or was it never just an illusion? For much of the 2020s, Western analysts began talking about a growing alignment between four countries: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. They cooperated in military technology, trade, and diplomacy. In international votes, they frequently supported each other, and in military exercises, they demonstrated increasing coordination. For many observers, it seemed like the beginning of something similar to the Axis powers of World War II. But there was a crucial detail. These countries never signed a formal military alliance. There is no treaty equivalent to NATO between them, no mutual defense clause, no legal obligation to go to war for each other. And when the crisis arrived, this difference became clear. When the attacks against Iran began, many analysts expected an immediate response. Perhaps Russian military support, perhaps strategic pressure from China, or at least a show of joint force. But what happened was exactly the opposite. The reactions were mainly diplomatic speeches, public condemnations, calls for negotiations, but no direct intervention for the Iranian government. This was a brutal shock, because for years, Tehran had believed that its partnerships with Moscow and Beijing were becoming increasingly deep. Russia's decision may seem strange at first glance. After all, Vladimir Putin has built much of his foreign policy in confronting the West. But the strategic reality is more complicated. Russia is already deeply involved in a major conflict in Ukraine. This conflict requires enormous military resources, equipment, troops, logistics. Opening a new indirect confrontation against the United States and Israel in the Middle East could simply be impossible for Moscow, especially in a scenario where Russia already faces significant economic and military pressure. For the Kremlin, supporting Iran militarily could mean entering a much larger war. And that is a risk Moscow is clearly unwilling to take. If Russia has military limitations at the moment, China's situation is different. Beijing is not involved in any active war. It has a gigantic economy and one of the largest armed forces in the world. Even so, the Chinese response was also extremely cautious. Beijing condemned the attacks and called for negotiations, but it avoided any kind of military involvement. This is because Chinese foreign policy follows a clear rule. China rarely enters wars it has unilaterally chosen. Since the late 1970s, the country has avoided large-scale armed conflicts. Instead, it prefers to expand its influence through trade, investment, and diplomacy. And in this context, Iran, despite its importance, is not essential enough to justify a confrontation with the United States. There's also an important economic factor. A large portion of Iran's exported oil goes to China. But Iran is not the only supplier. In fact, both countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates are also essential energy partners for Beijing. Going to war alongside Iran could jeopardize all these relationships, and for the Chinese leadership, global economic stability is a much higher priority than ideological alliances. All of this reveals something important about the current global scenario. There are strategic partnerships, there are shared interests, but that doesn't mean there's a real military alliance. Meanwhile, the United States continues to be supported by a vast network of military allies. Bases in Japan, strategic presence in South Korea, defense partnerships with European Union countries. This network of alliances creates a system very different from that formed by the West's rivals. Ultimately, the current conflict may have revealed an uncomfortable truth for some governments. The so-called axis between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea may exist in terms of shared interests. But when war actually begins, each country still makes its own decisions. And for Iran, this reality became clear in the hardest way possible, because at the moment when it most needed allies, no one appeared